Today, I will be talking about relational trauma and happiness with Mieke Vander Heyden, psychotherapist and coach from Brussels, Belgium. Hello, Mieke, and very welcome to our Open to Happiness podcast.
Hi, Nicoletta. Thank you so much for the invitation.
You're very welcome. It's lovely to have you here. Let's start with a very big question. What is
Mhm.
happiness to you?
Happiness to me, it's a kind of a contentment and acceptance of who I am and where I'm at in life, regardless of the circumstances. I feel it as a kind of inner peace. It's not a huge, big thing. I feel it's more like a smaller, subtle movement, even that I feel inside. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful to look at happiness through the internal experience, not as much through what's going on outside there in the external world. Because indeed, most likely for most of us, happiness is that um, internal experience that we have, that inner feeling that can be anything for anyone, really. So, what was your experience with happiness as you move through life? If you want to share a little bit.
Of course, that was a big, big struggle. I remember myself as a child as very angry. Even if you look at all the pictures, I'm like angry or sad. I was not happy. I always had different expectations from people around me or life instead of what life was giving me, actually. So I struggled a lot with that. And then also, my youth was not the easiest one. And things started to shift as soon as I started to live on my own, because then I felt a bit more free. I could do things my way. So there was like less tension with me and my environment, let's say. And I think things just kept on improving. Like every year, I'm feeling better and better with myself and with life, and being able to be more happy. So I think it might have to do with maturity and also life experiences that actually show me what it really is about, and that I always have a choice, right? I can choose for happiness or I can choose for tension or struggle. And it really is up to me. And I think at a certain point, I started to get that. And I also think that one of my breakthroughs was when I started to travel. Like I traveled for, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years now. And, as soon as you start to travel, there's nobody else to blame for how I feel. So that was a really interesting teaching for myself. So if I'm unhappy, it really is because of me, because I'm the one that is always there. I'm the only constant factor in my story, right? So that actually allowed me to drop all my drama and stories, and be more in the present, I think. Yeah.
What a beautiful story. I think you're right, because when you travel, you are in your own company. And if you are in bad company with yourself, then obviously
Mhm.
you have the answer where the problem is. It's true. But at the same time, yeah, I think in a way we need to create a space between us and our pasts. Because in our past, as positive as we are, we always find an element of trauma, an element of potential abuse or neglect or losses on the way. Adversity is right there in everyone's life. It's part of life. It is life itself. Um, and these challenges somehow shape us. They shape us into the people that we are today, in a way or another. But
Mhm.
at the same time, I'm thinking that these challenges do much more than that. They actually leave injuries into our psyche, into who we are, especially relational injuries. Because
Mhm.
relationships have been, at least in my experience, one of the most complex and complicated matters that I had to get my head around it, and I'm still struggling in relationships to this day. And I feel that that's part of my human nature. I will be always, struggling somehow in relationships, in different dimensions at different levels. So,
Mhm.
yes, now obviously you've been traveling, you've been with yourself. You learned a lot about yourself whilst traveling. You've learned about cultures and people and difference and diversity. It's amazing when you travel, isn't it? What inspired you to become a psychotherapist and coach?
Hmm. Well, I think in a way that role was quite familiar for me as a child, even like being there emotionally available for my father. So it was kind of, yeah, how I learned to be in relationship to my dad, and also then later to friends and so on. Um, so I think that was actually like unconsciously that was already there. And then I started to study social and cultural sciences. And from there, I had a lot of psychology. And I just loved all the therapy classes. So I decided to specialize afterwards into, into psychotherapy. And I just continued studying and practicing. And that's how it actually went. And obviously, there was also a point when I started my own psychotherapy. That was even before I started to study it. And what triggered it was a breakup, and then all the grief from the past just came up. So I knew I had something to do with it. And also, as a child, I wasn't really ready to process it. So it made sense that suddenly it just came up. And I just started to get fascinated as well by relationships and the healing journey as well. And it's still continuing, obviously. So I think there are like several factors altogether. Um, and then I also grew up in a family of kind of alternative people, let's say my mom and my dad. Like they were always meditating, they were like very conscious. So I imagine that that also might have helped because they were very aware of what health is. Doesn't mean that they always had the best responses to my needs. That's like mentally, cognitively, they were quite yeah, they were aware of it, let's say, not always in the practice.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a different trajectory comparing to mine because I come from childhood trauma. And probably we have something in common. My father inspired me to be a psychologist. I think when I was 10, I knew by then and I voiced it out. I told people, I'm going to be a psychologist because you are mentally disturbed and I'd like to understand why you're doing what you're doing. Um, so that was a long time ago. I don't know how it happened, but it just somehow it was whispered into my ear. So I was inspired by the dynamic, unfolding in front of me. And it was a negative experience, obviously,
Mm.
at the beginning. But eventually, it turned out to be an experience that I had to go through in order to arrive every moment somewhere else and keep arriving and keep, becoming a person like our wonderful Carl Rogers wrote in the 1950s. So we are both therapists. We are both working with this space of vulnerability,
Yeah.
with what it means to be a human being in this modern, challenging world,
Mm.
vibrant yet really fast and really demanding. How is life for a therapist in Brussels, in Belgium, these days?
Actually, I'm not in Brussels.
Oh,
I'm
you're
in
not in
Mexico.
Belgium. You're in Mexico. Okay. Yeah.
But I am from Belgium.
Yes.
Um, well, I just moved here a few months ago. So I'm seeing my clients online,
Yeah.
um, starting now also like physically. So it's, yeah, I feel like a new startup again.
Yeah, very good. I hope the weather is better than in Europe. In
Yes, now it's morning. It's a bit chilly. That's why I'm here with this
Yeah.
warm thing, but like within 1, 2 hours, you can get burnt in the sun again. So
Okay. So beautiful. Cool. And let's move now the conversation into the direction of relational trauma, because I would imagine your practice, you get a lot of that. We all struggle in relationships, whether it's family relationships, the relationship with ourselves first, but also relationship with others and the world. We are relational beings. We have a relational life, really. How
Mhm.
is relational trauma coming up, showing up in your therapy practice?
Mhm. Well, I think it's always there. Otherwise, people wouldn't come to therapy. Always, it's like needs didn't get met, expectations didn't get met, trust got broken. It it's almost always about that in the end. Um, Also, I have a lot of clients who had a difficult past. And then at a certain moment, they actually get stuck in life. So when they're like at the end of their 20s, 30s, 40s, then they start to realize, oh my God, this happened to me. Maybe this is why, like, my past has an impact on me and I never gave it enough importance, or I thought I got over it, but actually I'm not. And now it's time to heal, to look at it, because I don't want to stay in this moment in my life. I don't want to repeat these patterns. So that's usually when they come to me. And it can have different forms. It can be burnout, it can be a loss, it can be so many things, but there always is the relational aspect. And sometimes they come for one thing, but then we start to explore and there is actually much more, and there are like bigger issues that they actually didn't mention at the start. Yeah.
And in your view, what creates this relational trauma? Why do we have these injuries in our relationships? Why can't we just get on well and be happy and, you know, feel like everything is smooth and flowing really nicely?
I think we're all just so different and unique. And it's the expectations, I think, that we have from one another. Like, that person is gonna do this for me, that person's gonna make me happy, that person is gonna give me that. And then we notice that after a while that's actually not true, and we get disappointed, and we get our trust gets broken, or there's like tensions. So I think it really has to do with not accepting, or not letting the other person just be as the other person is, and not always wanting, how to say, not always taking responsibility for our own needs, that actually we need to learn to be there for ourselves. And I know this sounds very romantic and idyllic, obviously, but that is always a practice. And I think that both are true, no? That we need to find our happiness in ourselves. But I also think that there is a way of communicating or being with someone else as well, and not putting too much pressure on a relationship.
But how can we learn to be in a relational life if
Mhm.
we never had a relationship lecture at school? Our
Mm.
parents haven't been themselves, initiated and educated around what it means to be in healthy, positive, mutually satisfying relationships.
Mhm.
Because very often within the family environment, we learn what the dysfunction is really. We learned our relational style is very much influenced by what we see in our, immediate life, in our early years of life. So how can we learn to be relationally
Yeah.
healthy?
Well, I think we get hurt in relationship, but we also can heal in relationship. So for me, it's about trying to do things differently. It's about awareness and consciousness, like really making a choice, like, okay, this is how I usually respond or react. Now I'm going to take a step back. Now I'm going to do something different. What is it that I want? What action, what emotion, what feeling is gonna give me more of what I want? So I really think the self-reflection is very important there. And I think that is also what therapy does, right? A lot of self-reflection. So some people come to therapy because they have a model of what a good relationship can be. They come and practice with us, I sometimes say. But sometimes it can also like be with friends. Like you choose safe people to practice with and to do things differently. But obviously, it goes with ups and downs. We're human, it's never perfect. And it's also accepting that, right? That it's not going to be from the first time. And every relationship, they have different phases as well. And acknowledging that and accepting that as well. Yeah, but I don't believe in one recipe. Like, this is what you need to do. Everybody has a different journey, depending where we're already coming from, how we started, and what life gives us, right? And what we choose as well. I don't know if that's an answer to your question.
It is a very good answer. Thank you so much. And I absolutely adore the fact that you talk about awareness, the conscious awareness, and the power of choice. I'm putting my thoughts and my learnings, on the paper these days, hopefully one day to publish this book with all my learnings really from my own healing journey, but also the journeys of all of the others, some of the others that I joined and I guided in their healing process. And what I'm discovering these days, how I'm looking at trying to comprehend and make sense and conceptualize from a professional perspective what's going on with us, especially around relational trauma, which is now at the core of my work, because I think any type of trauma, whether it's cultural, social, whatever, transgenerational, it has a relational component. It always happens in a relationship with yourself, your family, the other people of the world. It's not isolated. It's, otherwise you wouldn't get the trauma in the first place. So what I'm learning now is that in our conscious awareness resides our true self. That's where our higher self, our higher power is. And I think the higher power that we all carry within us, it's actually the power of choice. That's the only power we truly have. And it's the only power that no one can actually touch, I'm thinking, because if you really connect with yourself, with your resources, you are now feeling empowered to make a decision, which is good for you. And if you consider the others, obviously, it would be good for the others as well. So the power of choice, the way you talk about choice is important. It's very much aligned with my style of work, where I find myself now. And the conscious awareness, I think it's making all the difference, because very often, if not always, trauma comes through low levels of consciousness. And as a parent myself, I'm thinking, oh God, if I would have a manual, when I was young, there was no manual, there was no really much reading. It was more about taking care of the baby, not being a conscious parent. But I'm learning a lot about that. If we don't have the consciousness in our parenting years, clearly the next generations will pick up on our traumas, will somehow be fed with whatever we manifest, with what we have inside, with what we absorbed, which is intergenerational, no doubt about it, to a certain level. So the question now is, how can we be consciously aware? Because I've been discussing this with some peers, and we keep talking about, creating a sense of awakening in people, especially people dear to us. Imagine we have family members that struggle with something, and we desperately want to see them, well. We want them to be happy. We want them to be healthy, but it's not always happening, and there's losses on the way. There's a lot of pain associated with that. So if you talk about the conscious awareness, how do we really bring ourselves closer to a space within us, within our true self, where we can connect with that important wisdom, with that knowing that we have within ourselves, that we can actually make the choice in every moment if we become mindful and present?
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize when we are triggered, because when we're triggered, we're not in the present moment anymore. And that is actually when we're doing more damage to the relationships, because we're reacting, we're not responding, right? So that is what I teach my clients. Like, okay, when are you triggered? What are your triggers? Where is it coming from? And I think if we can operate from a state where we are calm, when our nervous system is regulated, then we are connected to ourselves. And only then we can actually connect to other people in the best way that we can, with the resources that we have in that moment. So I always think it's about self-connection and bringing ourselves back to the present moment.
Oh, so powerful. I absolutely love that. It's true, because if you're not embodied, if you're not connected with yourself, how are you gonna become aware of a potential flashback or trigger or a traumatic response, which is so common because we all have, unhealed wounds from the past. We all have issues that haven't been processed, haven't been resolved, people that have handled that the wrong way. We were not developed enough to deal with the experience of the moment. But if you have conscious awareness and you become aware of the triggers, like you say, yeah, that's a different story. Now we can start doing a bit of work. We can go down within. How how do you work with your clients that go through traumatic responses, and they struggle to remain open to joy and happiness, and potentially feel life through quite negative lenses?
Well, I work a lot. Well, I think first of all, it's obviously like acknowledging their pain and their hurt and where they're at, and listening to their story. And at the same time, it's also about trying to bring in a different perspective, like showing them that that they have choices. I also love giving them tools to regulate, to self-connect. I work a lot with the body. I work with art, with psychodrama, with dance and movement. So there is so much more that we can actually use to heal, to connect. So I actually bring it all in, depending on the person, obviously, where they're at and what they actually need. I don't have like a standard program with a client. It's really very interactive in dialogue and working from the heart and creating that safe space. And I think that probably is the essence, no? First creating that safe space.
Yeah.
So they can feel safe, so they can relax, and then they can start to open up, and they can start to connect in a different way. And a more healthy relationship can actually can start to exist. And if they can do that in the therapy room, they can also start doing that outside the therapy room. So
For sure. Creating the
yeah.
safety, doing a bit of somatic work, coming back home into the body. It's so beautiful. We work the same, although we are miles away. We are inspired by the new movement. I think you practice holistic therapies as well. Your therapy is very holistic from what you described. And
Yes.
can we actually heal relational trauma? What has been your experience so far?
That's a good question. I think we can heal from it, but we cannot say that it's not there anymore. Like it hasn't happened. You know what I mean? So I do think that the pain can go away. We can learn other strategies. We can learn how to relate in a different way, for sure. But it also depends, like, what do you mean with healing? Is it not feeling it anymore and not being upset when you think about it? Or is it like behaving in a different way? What is healing actually? And that is also what I ask my clients first, like, what is it that you want to get out of this? What is your goal? And for everybody, that is also different. It's not up to me to say how someone needs to deal with something or heal. It's up to them.
Yeah, you're just guiding them within themselves to find out what is necessary for them, isn't it? Right.
Exactly.
Same here. So your perception of healing, the way you engage with healing yourself as a human being, as a professional, as a social being, what would you say healing is for you? What is healing really? How do you see it?
For me, it's about giving something its place, like having dealt with all the emotions, having gone through it, having found an inner peace with it, and integrate it in your life in a different way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
So the emotional response is not the same anymore. We got to terms with it. We can look at it and we can take the teachings with us. Also see the gifts, what a certain situation has brought us, because without that situation or trauma, we wouldn't be who we are. So also acknowledging that.
Yes, because there are definitely benefits. There's always post-traumatic growth. Most of us actually shift from the the victimhood mentality into survival mode, into surviving, into thriving later on. And we then look at the past from the perspective of today with the intelligence and the wisdom that we have today. And it's a different kind of story. I mean, we even change our self-narrative. We think differently about our own life, our own story, what happened to us, and so on. So do you find that clients in therapy um, are willing to go deeper within themselves and connect with those facets of the selves, with those growing edges of the self, to confront maybe what happened, to confront the past, to maybe look at those unpleasant aspects of the present moment, of the self in the moment, that perhaps are not fully integrated, or
Yes.
they struggle. Where do you think clients do well in terms of their self-discovery and healing process, and where do they struggle a little bit?
Well, I always see the longing to heal and to move forward, and also I see the fear of doing what it takes to get there, right? Because they know, like, to get there, it's a price. They need to go to places they don't want to go. They might need to encounter feelings that they have been avoiding all the time. They need to behave differently, and they always have avoided that, and that always has a reason, obviously. So yes, they will get challenged in therapy, but lovingly and in their own pace, obviously, and in the safety. But it takes courage to go through therapy process. That's probably one of the first things that I say, like, wow, congratulations, you're here. This is an interesting, fascinating journey, and you will explore and discover so much about yourself that you didn't imagine possible. And at the same time, it might be a bumpy road, and sometimes it will get challenging. Um, yeah, so I feel like the resistance, and I also feel the longing. And it's okay if they feel resistance. It's about allowing that to be there as well. It has a reason, right? And it's an indicator of something. So I just include it in the therapy space. Um, yeah. So sometimes clients, they have no idea what they are starting with, and others, they have a better idea. But I feel that as long as there is a trust and the open dialogue, they make the necessary steps.
I love the sound of your work. uh, Absolutely. Resistance and longing, they are the two ends of the human experience, really. And then the journey goes in between, because that's the nature of life. And it's natural to actually feel the resistance and feel like not wanting to go back there, not wanting to talk about something. I have a trauma screening questionnaire, and the first step is to just to answer the questions yes or no. I mean, clarify the yeses. Have you been through this adversity or not? 20 questions. I created it myself based on my own trauma and the traumas that I've seen in clients over the decades. And it's just an introduction, really, to having, a conversation.
Mhm.
And most of the clients obviously fill it in, complete it. But then when we go into the next stages and we go a bit deeper and we try to unpack those yeses, how did it actually happen? How old were you? What was going on in your life at the time? Who else was there? Was anyone there to see you? Or you felt just, by yourself and alone, lonely, unattended, and so on. The more deeper we go, the less people actually are willing to go there. I even had someone today who has left this on a site for a few months now, and I just sent the message because I found the notes, and the person said, "I'm sorry, I will talk about it in the session, but it's quite busy now. It's the end of the year. I'm in such a role, and I have responsibility. But a part of me actually thinks life is good. Why would I go back and start exploring that hurt, you know, and the past. And I say, fair enough. I mean, the factor of readiness is important, isn't it? We can't force people to go where they are not ready to go and see what they are not ready to see.
Totally.
This is a caring space, like you said, isn't it?
Yeah, and sometimes they might come back later when they are ready.
Yes.
Yeah. So I also believe whatever they did already in the sessions, that is already a big thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So you work with gratitude and appreciation for the progress, not looking at what else could have been done, because I think we all want to have results. We want to have results ourselves in our own lives, but also as professionals in whatever we do. We want to have success stories, and we want to see people, especially as therapists, we want to see people transforming their lives. But transformation is not as simple, it's not a snap of a finger. It takes time, it's a journey. Um, and it's fine to stop. I mean, clients sometimes do the therapy for a while and then they stop. And I say to them, some of them I don't really know how to say it. I'd like to take a break, or, you know, and you just allow for that, you know, experience to be part of the, you know, this space, whatever's unfolding right now, because it is necessary. We don't really need to force things. I think we're talking more now about the frame of therapy and what's going on in that space, which is very exciting because I don't do this often. So conscious awareness, relational trauma is there. We will struggle in a way or another. Um, if we become mindful and present, it helps to figure out, why are we reactive? Why are we feeling a certain way? What's going on in our emotionality? Why are we dysregulated, like you said? And then from there onwards, we can maybe put in place some little measures to create a little bit of a shift. Now, what has been the best tool, or the most successful tool in helping people to move to a sense of healing, especially from relational traumas that have been hurting, like betrayals and, you know, abuse and even neglect?
That's a good question. In the end, I think it's less about tools. It's more about the relationship that I have with the client. And that is the healing part. It's about my presence. It's about the transparency and how safe they can feel and how openly they can express themselves in vulnerability. I think that might actually be more important than all the tools. All the tools, that's amazing and I love them. But often they're actually not going to say at the end of the session, I like this session because of the tool or the exercise. It's more like, because you saw me, I felt really seen, you heard me, now I got it, you know, like, oh, just that word. That is actually more the things that I get back.
Yeah,
Like what is in the interaction.
because maybe, Mieke, maybe this is actually the best tool, isn't it? The therapeutic relationship that we have. So this is a skill in itself. And I think what probably many people don't understand and don't know, even people that have been through a lot of therapy, and I meet people that have been through hundreds of hours of therapy sometimes, and they obviously still work on their healing and self-discovery and personal growth. I think what we don't really acknowledge, it's the fact that in order to create a safe therapeutic relationship, you need to be available yourself for that. You need to make yourself vulnerable for that experience, to enjoy it in the vulnerability, in the space that you create for the client. So it feels like you need to go there first to explore the cave and then know how you're guiding the client within.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. What I also find very helpful is working with groups, because I feel that lots of damage or hurt has been done in systems, family systems, school systems, bullying, whatever, right? So, and it's very challenging for some people to go to a workshop or a therapy group or a retreat because there is that potential danger again. But obviously, we create a safe place. And I feel if people really open up and give themselves that chance, for me, that's mind-blowing. That really is magic happening. Yeah, because I can see that there can be a very fast transformation there.
Oh gosh, you're so right. I think the healing individually, the individual healing that we do with someone guiding us, with a companion, like a therapist or a coach or whatever, is quite powerful. But the healing in the community that you talk about, it's absolutely life changing. I have a little community that I'm joining every Wednesday night, like a little happiness
Yeah.
seekers club there. Um, and it's fantastic because we don't even have to share much. It's just the presence of the others, the, knowing that they are there, and we feel held and we feel connected. And then we realize that we share kind of the same experiences. It doesn't matter what countries we come from, where we find ourselves, the age groups and cultures and whatever differences. It feels like they melt in the face of the community, because what keeps us in that community is the essential, the intrinsic, I think the fundamental aspects of our humanness and humanity. So yes, although probably not many people would be willing to uh, share with a group, some people would find it a little bit frightening, isn't it?
Mhm. Yes and no. Yeah. Yes. Can be a big step. But I also think that there it also depends like how we invite people to join things and how we create safety. Like I'm always so great when someone is coming for the first time and they're like, oh, I'm not sure and I might leave. And then in the end, they're like totally relaxed and happy and they're like, oh, when can I come the next time? I think that's so beautiful. I think the first step is the most difficult. Once they've experienced it, they see like, wow, this is really beautiful. What's happening here? And then they just want more of that.
Yes, indeed. It's like with a awesome cake, you have a bite and then obviously you want more than that. So beautiful, Mieke. Can we now find out towards the end of the podcast, what are your best three teachings that you capture through life and you would like to share maybe with our listeners and watchers?
For my teachings, I think
Teachings
it's,
about healing relational trauma and living a happy and fulfilling life.
but I think there's several things, right? I think one crucial thing is like let go of the resistance that you have towards a situation, or I speak for myself that I had towards situations. And I mean by that, like really noticing what I can change and what can I not change. What I can change, then that's up to me. So there I take responsibility. I have a choice again. And what I can change, there it's more the practice of letting go and surrender. And I think that is it's a practice every time again, right? Every day again. But I do think there is a beautiful secret in there of how I am living my life. And sometimes the only thing that we can do is change our perspective. And that is very empowering. And only that is already a big change. So I think that is a big one. And I already said it a little bit. Maybe it's almost the same. Like, how can I go from feeling a victim to taking responsibility for myself, responsibility for my emotions, for my thoughts, for my behavior? And that also creates a choice. And that's very empowering. And that actually leads to happiness instead of suffering. So I really always ask myself that question, okay, what is the best for me? What can I do? Where am I taking responsibility and where am I still in the victim? That as if life is doing something wrong to me or a person is doing something wrong to me. No, maybe there is also a gift in this. Maybe there is a teaching in this. Maybe I can grow from this. So, and I can see it right now. Not yet, but maybe in the future I will be able to see it and I will be very grateful for it. So it's changing the perspective, like taking some distance, probably looking at it from the distance, the meta perspective. Um, and also taking it with curiosity, like what will come from this. Yeah.
So beautiful. Basically, in every single of the teachings that you mentioned, we have the factor of openness, isn't it? You need to be open to change. You need to be open to take responsibility and see your
Yeah.
experience differently. You need to be open to maybe contemplate looking at this differently. Have that curiosity. It's all about openness in a way, because I often think, and I speak to people about this. I often think that in the absence of openness for anything really, it's
Mhm.
very unlikely that we will actually move forward. It feels like you're stuck in a way. If you don't have the openness and you're closed, there's no way in, there's no way out. So you're not actually communicating any messages with the universe or whatever power is out there. But if you stay open, like you said, open to change, open to take responsibility, open to other perspectives, open to curiosity, then that says, well, I'm actually, I'm not in control of everything other than this little bit, and even here just a little, not fully. Um, and I remain open to whatever's coming. You're right. There's a lot of learning in every single experience. Buddha was right. I don't know why we people, we develop so many sciences and we know a lot and we feel a little bit grandiose around our progress as a society and development, but we can't really process such a simple truth that we are the makers, we are the creators of our own suffering, really, uh, because of the expectations that we have. Such a beautiful chat, Mieke. So,
Yeah, really enjoy
where
it.
can people find out more about you if they want to work with you, if they want to learn more about your beautiful work and your journey in life?
Obviously, well, I have a website, which is www.movinghearttherapy.com, and there you can find all my offers, some tools and freebies, but also how I work individually with couples, retreats, workshops, yeah, trainings. So, and also there you can find me on Facebook, also Moving Hearts Therapy, Instagram Moving Hearts Therapy. It's everywhere Moving Hearts Therapy.
Yes, that sounds really beautiful. How did that come about, the moving hearts? Well, what was the story behind it before we
Well,
end?
I was just looking for a name, and I work a lot with movement, like dance and movement therapy. So it's like I want the movement in there, and also movement is like change, right? And then the heart is like, well, it's connecting from the heart that actually is what we want to do, what we want to learn, what we want to enhance. And then in the heart there is also the art. So
Right.
because a lot with the arts. And then I also work a lot with nomads and expats. So there's also, again, the moving, the change, and how that can take a
Ah,
balance, obviously, and how that can trigger many things. So yeah, there's lots of perspectives just in that
yes.
one
It's
little.
very, very creative and it's a beautiful brand. Thank
Thank
you so much for bringing it into the world. Thank you for your time, for sharing all your wisdom. It's been amazing to chat here with you today. Many, many
Same.
thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. I just love this conversation. And yeah, thank you so much.